Okay, welcome back. Now you might recognize this aircraft as the Bumblebee. Unfortunately, the Bumblebee never saw the usage that I envisioned for it. The original plan was to launch the Scorpion tank on the first turn, which I did, and then if you look up inside the bay here, you'll see these two slots could be picked up by the gantry up here, and yeah, that would allow it to pick up the Scorpion tank and move it. But what ended up happening was the Scorpion tank didn't survive that initial turn, so I launched the Grasshopper instead. Now, since then, we've updated from version 1.02 to version 1.04, which means a lot of the aerodynamics have changed, and a lot of little things that I wasn't aware of have changed. Things like these wings can take liquid fuel now. The one that really causes me problems is the jet blast from these now travels further. So if we have the sides up here, then what you get is the exhaust coming from these engines can now hit the back ones again, which they couldn't before. They were spaced apart specifically to avoid that from being a possibility. So unfortunately, that is the way it is. It means that it will need redoing, which is a shame because a lot of time was spent on this. The result of that effect is, though, that the plane can't really fly in forward flight, and that's pretty critical for a cargo plane. We need to be able to fly in a straight line. If we can't do that, then yeah, it's what's the point, really? So let's go over some of the problems and interesting things we found. First off, the most common issue I had with the Butterfly when I was doing the testing is this guidance unit here, joining to these adapters. That was the most common place that it would separate. And you can see I've gone to a certain degree there to try to make it stick, with struts and careful bracing around the sides to take as much of the weight off that as possible. But still, if you did an aggressive turn, and often you would involuntarily do an aggressive turn when you dropped a bit of cargo, or you would voluntarily do one even where you pull up to drop the cargo out more cleanly so there'd be less chance of hitting the back, sometimes you tear the front off, and that's not good. So that's something that we will have to change. 1.04 doesn't need anywhere near the number of intakes that the previous versions needed, so we can cut down on those, which will be nice. Speaking of the back, so dropping stuff off here that could hit the back was one of the reasons we had to pull up hard. Now, we could avoid that altogether by allowing a long open back. So what I'm thinking is, rather than have this lump here and an end, we don't really need this adapter. We can get away with this one at the front, and if we have to, we can get a big to small adapter and clamp it on there for when we need to carry the single normal sized ones. On the gantry up here, this Clampetron docking port was difficult to get to connect to the Scorpion tank. So what I'll probably do is switch to a claw, and then not only can I grab that, I can grab just about anything. Finally, everything else worked nicely enough. my yaw control was extremely limited in this plane, so that isn't a huge deal. I mean, basically there's this one fin and the air brakes on the sides, which allowed me to turn left and right, which is actually quite an important ability when you're trying to just line up a good airdrop. What else? The guns were fine, although probably a needless amount of firepower. The fact is that these do weigh a couple of tons each, so that sucks payload away from what I would otherwise be able to lift. The engines, these whiplash engines, they've been adjusted so they produce a little bit less thrust. It's probably only about 20%, but that 20% has come right out of what the thing's total can lift. So we had lift about 30 to 40 tons before, and the whole thing weighs about 60 tons. Now we're down to maybe lifting 80 tons, which means 30-40 tons payload. So now we're down to 20 tons payload, or 80 tons total instead of 100 tons total, which sucks. I mean, when we're in forward flight, these become much more effective again. But 20 tons really should be enough, but it's just a lot of things it isn't enough. The biggest area that we have a problem is at tanks, and again the Scorpion had to have its tail sort of sticking down out the bottom here, which was always awkward, especially when parking. You'll see how these legs are splayed and these ones are up. That's so the Scorpion can reverse in underneath there to get picked up. But that's that. Why did we redo it? Because of all those things, we're probably better off redoing it than trying to update the Bumblebee 1. So that's where we'll go with it. Yeah. On the plus side, we do have a few new things. Like we had Kerbal Foundries before, as you can see by that. We had Infernal Robotics. But everything else, oh, I see that I stuck some Werner engines on the side to help with that yaw. That was obviously, I was obviously aware I was having trouble. And that's something that I'd forgotten that I had corrected for. Yeah, that's the stuff I had. So in addition, we now have Fire Spitter. So if we want, we can have a little biplane cockpit if we prefer, but I don't think that will be the case. I think much more likely is we will have some helicopter parts. So let's get to that now. So this beast that you see here is the Bumblebee 2. You'll see it's got a single gun on the back, as well as some rudders and ruddervators as before. We have bladed wings on top for extra lift at low speeds, which is where we've lost it from the turbojet engines. A lander can in the front there, instead of the previous thing we had, the remote control unit. And a claw in the middle up there. You can obviously see the design pedigree of the Bumblebee. You can see that it's very heavily based on the original. Most of the same tricks have been used here as before. The exception is the side pods have been made a lot longer so that I can use those helicopter blades. And the gantry has a telescopic rod in it now. So at the moment what I'm doing is I'm having trouble with that core, so I'm partway through testing here. So what I'll do is I will remove that piece and replace it with something a little smaller, a little tougher. What am I thinking of? Nah, that'll mean easily crushable bits, so that's not ideal. We'll go to structural. That's not great. What about the... Yeah, that'll do. Let's stick a couple of those on. There we go. Click that on there. Now, oops. I'll just get rid of that and put it back. Gotta love the Control Z. Alright. And take away this adapter and use another one of those little panels. Now, I'm not sure if this matters greatly, but I'd rather not have problems with it. Oops, did it again. Control Z. So we'll slide this up a bit just to make some room for that that docking bay there. Like that. And that's looking good. So we've got the claw really in addition to that docking port on the bottom. Alright. You can see the telescopic piston sticking out of the ridge on the back there. We're probably going to need to do something about the mobility, but it's not too hard to fix that with just some more SAS, so I like the black and yellow as well, because of the whole Bumblebee thing, so we'll stick a bunch of these all over the place rather than go with the big ones like we did last time. No, maybe not that many, but still, you get the idea. Oh, I've missed one on the other side. Let's just duplicate that. And is there room in the middle there? Not really. Maybe if I... still not really, so if I slide that in a bit... yeah, that'll do. There we go. Alright, so we've got a lot more control. I don't know. Let's keep some out. I quite like the ridges, I quite like the black and yellow. Those blades I've actually got set on the wrong setting, so they're a big problem in my my maneuverability right now. Getting something clipping and banging up the front there, so hopefully that'll sort that out. Let's just pop these up a bit just in case it's them that is clipping. Well, I'm not sure what they'd be hitting. No, I don't know. Sticking back down. Okay. Well, let's give it a spin. Alright, so what we're gonna do here is just a little simple test flight. Be careful with these blades, put them away. They can hit the wings and things, although they seem to be very forgiving about what counts as a hit. They can actually hit. So let's just nothing, no, so I'm just checking there for the exhaust. If the exhaust is hitting the intake, it doesn't seem to be, so we pick up speed okay. We are going to be viable by the looks of it, flying on this angle. Still no clipping. Right, so about 70 odd degrees, that's going to be my cap for that. So, as I said, I'm still partway through the setup of this plane, so let's bring it around. Still nothing? Excellent. So let's just see. That's because the obviously the direction of the exhaust changes when you pull up the engine's thrust vector, and pulling up is going to push it towards my air intake. So it's not turning especially fast. So let's just see if we can speed it up. Well. Now the previous Bumblebee did not handle this well. It did not like this kind of thing being done. This one doesn't mind at all. That's excellent news. Alright. Let's switch to VTOL. And, supposed to start with, we can aim. I mean, we're quite heavy, but we'll just try for the VAB first, to test how agile it is when it's in this flight mode. Like I said before, so this is me coming back. The previous commentary was during, but this is post commentary now. So those blades are set, so you see I keep rolling. I hadn't worked out why that was. The blades have two ways of being set up. One, it's like a propeller, and it assumes it's going to be on the front of the aircraft. The other, it's like a helicopter blade, like we've got them here, and it assumes it's going to be on the top. I have all four of them set wrong, so I keep rolling in strange angles. This will probably be a lot easier to do now than it was when I was trying it here. And I also noticed that if you look at the thrust to weight ratio of the top of the screen, I am just starting to descend now with the thrust to weight ratio very low. So the thrust of those blades isn't factored in. Now this should be chopping my plane to pieces, but thankfully it let me off. Is it a plane anymore? How many rotary wings do you have before it stops being a plane? And again, this is before I worked out that something was funny. So I am trying to descend, and failing and succeeding and failing, rolling all over the place because of those things being set wrong, descending and ascending more than I'd expect because they haven't realized the thrust to weight ratio calculation in the top right is off yet. That's the problem with using extra instruments. If I was just using the throttle and the VSI up by the altimeter, then I would probably be fine. So in the end I gave up. I was just like, righto, let's land it just in the courtyard here and see if I can actually just land it like more like I would be doing in the wild. Yeah, no problem. Those rotor blades react so quickly though. Very impressed. Just gonna try some maneuvering and see how it behaves when I throw it around a bit. The previous one did not like this, so let's just put these blades away. forwards. Ah, no. It's starting to... Let's try and pull ourselves out of a flat spin. One of the advantages of vectoring engines is that you can pull out of a flat spin. Oh, this is worse though. What we've done is we've gone into a barrel roll without the ability to pull out. Oh, that hit the ground pretty hard. You want to say anything? Revert. Okay, so changes. Let's think about this. So obviously I need some more maneuverability, so that's one of the things missing from the previous Bumblebee is I had some more control surfaces. Let's stick those on and just have a look at where... Ah, okay. So that's why it feels so awkward in forward flight, is the thing is very stable with the center of lift that far behind the center of mass. Even with the downswept wings, it's just taking a little overboard. So that should greatly improve things. A sort of semi-canard near the front there. So what I'm going to do this time is just take it on a little jaunt in forward flight now that I know what I am trying to get out of it. Make sure forward flight behaves. So basically VTOL is fine. It needs lots of tweaking, but it's definitely controllable. Forward flight, you will need to check. And whilst I'm at it, I'll probably also just check the range. One of the big changes in 1.04 was that the all of the jet engines use double what they used to. So I'm just throttling up slowly to see where I lift. Yeah, see, if you look up there now, the thrust to weight ratio is very low, and I am lifting off the ground, so it's actually over 1. And that's where I noticed A and D being set wrong. So I switch it. Gear away. Now note how much more maneuverable that is now. It responds to my yaw and my roll much more nicely. Alright, well, anyway, let's take it for a flight. Still didn't hit it there. Just cook the front. Yep, that's definitely colliding still. But what you gonna do? Thrust to weight ratio not bad. Not great, given that we're not carrying any payload. But not bad. Certainly we can carry a bunch of stuff without too much difficulty here. Definitely more than 20 tons. It's just that initial takeoff that's the difficulty. You'll see how much higher the thrust to weight ratio is now. Compared to how it was when it took off, and that's just because of the speed. As the engines gain speed, they become not more efficient, but more effective. So the amount of thrust they can put out goes up, but they will use more fuel to do that. The claw. Popped up there a little bit. Alright, let's skip ahead because this next bit takes some time. As you can see, I'm trying to get base boss to target the runway, and when I finally do, it tells me it's 0 meters. Which is a blatant lie. Testing the laser eyes, and I realized that I haven't actually put any batteries on the plane, so it's only got a couple of hundred electric charge, which is nowhere near enough for lasers, but what I can do is, if you look in the middle of those engine pods, there's space underneath the extra intakes there for exactly that kind of thing. So I might stick some more SAS up the front ones and some batteries in the back ones, and that should solve that problem. Just fiddling around with time skip to see how it behaves. That's not too bad. Whoops. Looks like we can go quite the distance. That river I'm passing now is great fun to fly down at low altitude, by the way, if you're ever wanting to piss around. Grab a plane and fly above the water, obviously, but below the crest of the valley. It's a great test for maneuverability. We've got the Aurora Tapialis in the background there as we head up towards the North Pole. Fuel's starting to run low as we're passing out over another one of these seas. We're coming up to that Easy Cape, or whatever it's called. I've forgotten now what the Penguin base is called. It's his primary strike point for attacking tape. So you can see with the drone in the middle there that we can reach pretty much anywhere on the planet unladen. It's only this circle in the middle which we can't reach if we were to fly that way. So we have enough bases that we could reach anywhere in the planet with an unladen one of these. So, out of fuel, that means unfortunately our APUs fail and our energy starts to run down quite rapidly, that you can see. I fire up these just to see if I could auto-rotate, but it turns out they're not that kind of helicopter blade. So no auto-rotation for me. Now, I just have a look to see what kind of control I can get out of it. I put on some brakes just to try and slow us down. The gear comes out, just add some friction to the bottom, but doesn't seem to make a lot of difference in pulling us down, nose down or nose up. We don't seem to have the control surface, the control authority that we need. We can roll just fine, but taking ourselves, there's that cracking. It looks like it's happening between the nose cone and the landing pod. It's maybe just getting pushed back too hard against the against the lander can. So I'll need to stick that out a bit further. Hopefully that will solve the problem. Or is it the lasers? Well, regardless, if you can spot what that is, let me know, because those little minor dings like that, you don't get reports for when you hit F3. So, not a great amount of control authority, which is a shame. Starting to get a little close to the ground. I'm still, if you look at the controls down in the bottom left, you can see I'm still trying to pull out, pull down. I've been doing it the whole time. But time to give up on that. So, go Jeb! Woo! That's actually falling quite far. Well, you're really lucky you didn't get hit by the falling plane, to be honest. Well... that's why Jeb is so badass, I suppose. Congratulations, Jeb. Our A Industries testing is done for now. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching.